Associates and another installment of the Elville webinar series. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Today's topic is one many of you may recognize: Able Accounts, a financial tool to promote health, independence, and financial stability. And it's presented by Kelly Nelson, our dear friend at the firm and the Outreach and Communications Manager with Maryland Able. And I'm Jeff Stauffer, Community Relations Director with the firm, and I'll be moderating today's program. So we have several new attendees on today's presentation. So welcome to everyone, whether you're from Pathfinders for Autism, Autism Society of Maryland, Brain Injury Association of Maryland, or the ARC, welcome. Just a few housekeeping items. We always encourage your general questions throughout the presentation, so please note them in the questions panel and we'll pause periodically to address them. They always enhance the presentation and discussion, so thanks in advance. And you also received the presentation slides by email yesterday. If you don't have them in front of you and you'd like them, they're also in the section marked handouts on your screen to download at this time. And following the webinar, you will receive a survey to provide your feedback. We really appreciate you taking a couple minutes to offer your thoughts about today's presentation. We always read and value every comment that you have to share with us. And here at the firm, we work every day with clients and families guided by education, collaboration, and compassion. Every client, every day. We're always available for consultations and welcome the chance to be a resource to your family and you. So I have the pleasure of introducing a dear friend of the firm and someone I consider a personal friend, Kelly Nelson, who we've worked with for many years at Elville & Associates. How are you today, Kelly?
Doing great.
Good. I want to offer Kelly just a brief, but proper introduction. So Kelly is the Outreach and Communications Manager with Maryland Able. Kelly has worked in the field of disabilities for more than 30 years. She has served in many roles supporting people with disabilities and their families through advocacy, education, and connecting them to vital resources within their community. As a parent of a child with disabilities, Kelly is passionate about helping her daughter to become a confident self-advocate as she pursues her goals of working and living independently in the community. As the Outreach and Communications Manager for Maryland Able, she is delighted to have the opportunity to connect with many people with disabilities, their families, and the staff that support them as she travels throughout Maryland, educating people about the benefits of having an Able account. Through her outreach endeavors, Kelly is excited to see how her work with Maryland Able is helping to promote personal choice, independence, and economic stability for people with disabilities. And we're really excited to have you here with us, Kelly. You could be many places, I'm sure, but you've chosen to be with us, so thank you.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to be a guest, and Maryland Able really appreciates you and the team at Elville, because you have been just instrumental in helping the Maryland Able program connect with people with disabilities and their families for many, many years. So we really appreciate that, and I'm super excited to be here because this is our first webinar of 2026, so that's great. Also, this will be the first time that I get to share some really great updates that went into effect in January 1st, on January 1st. So we're looking forward to that. My plan today is to provide you with a general overview of the Maryland Able program. We're going to cover things such as an understanding of, the legislation that makes Able accounts possible. We'll talk about eligibility, account management. We'll talk about some of the main benefits of having an Able account, and then we'll move into different features that we have here in Maryland Able that I believe are just really, really important and helpful for people with disabilities and their families that are going to plan for their future. So let's go ahead and jump off the board here and just take a look at what an Able account is. And basically, an Able account is a way for a person with a disability and their families to be able to save money without jeopardizing those critical benefits such as SSI and Medicaid and other waiver services. So if you have a family member who's currently receiving SSI, you're already aware that there's that $2,000 asset limit that is imposed by Social Security Administration, meaning that that person can never have more than $2,000 in assets without jeopardizing those benefits. So the Able accounts are a way to be able to do just that, save money and not lose those benefits. This is actually a result of federal legislation that was passed way back in 2014 by President Obama. It was called the Stephen Beck Jr. Achieving a Better Life Experience. That's how we get the acronym for ABLE. And what it did is it made possible the ability for someone to be able to save beyond the $2,000 limit and actually have up to $100,000 in an ABLE account, and they could still maintain their SSI benefits as well as Medicaid and any Medicare waivers that they were receiving, things like housing waivers, SNAP benefits, things like that. So that made that possible. People often ask me, is this just a Maryland thing? And the answer is no. Because of this being federal legislation, this applies to states that have ABLE programs across the country. There's currently 47 ABLE programs nationwide, with Maryland being just one of them. Here in Maryland, we launched our program back in 2017, and we celebrated our 8-year anniversary, in November of last year. And we are excited because the program is growing every year, thanks to our wonderful partners who are helping us to share this information. And here in Maryland, our program is operated under the Maryland State Treasurer's Office. Okay, so let's go ahead. That's a little historical background. Let's take a look at why ABLE accounts are so helpful. What are the main benefits? Well, the first one we've already talked about, and that's increasing that savings limit before those SSI cash benefits are impacted. Not only that, they're also going to be protecting those other valuable benefits such as Medicaid health insurance and any types of waivers they may have. Another benefit is that when a person has money in an ABLE account, whether they're saving or investing in the ABLE account, it's tax-free earnings. They're not going to be paying any taxes on those earnings, not while the money is in the ABLE account and not when they take it out. As long as the money that's coming out for the withdrawal is being spent on the person with a disability to be able to support them in their health, independence, and quality of life. So tax-free earnings are great. Another very helpful thing is access to a state income subtraction for contributions made to an ABLE account. So if you have a family member that has an ABLE account and you're trying to save for their future, contributions that you're making to that ABLE account will be an income subtraction on your Maryland state taxes. If a person is opening an ABLE account for themselves and they're working, they can be putting money into their own ABLE account, and they can use that income subtraction on their Maryland state taxes. They're lowering their taxable income. So really helpful here. We'll talk more about the tax income subtraction in just a little bit. The other benefit is easy online enrollment and account management. Anyone that has a family member with a disability, we've been through it when it comes to applications for DDA or Social Security benefits. We know how lengthy those application processes can be. We also know that it takes a long time to determine whether you're going to be receiving those benefits. But with an ABLE account, it takes about 15 minutes to set it up online. And then once you have the account set up, you're able to manage it online and have access to your account and your funds 24/7. So that's another benefit for families that I think is really appreciated. And with that online access comes easy access to your funds. So you can decide when you need to take those withdrawals and you can access it at any time electronically by transferring funds into a linked bank account, and you can spend it, for anything that they need that's going to support them in health, independence, and quality of life. So let's take a look at who can open an ABLE account. Thankfully, this year, we were able to implement the ABLE Age Adjustment Act that was actually passed in 2022, but it took effect on January the 1st. So now anyone with a qualifying disability that started before the age of 46 is now eligible for an ABLE account. And in order for a person to be eligible, they have to meet 2 criteria. The first is that they have to have a disability that meets the Social Security definition of a disability, okay? And the other thing is, when you're enrolling in the ABLE account, people are saying, how do I show my eligibility? Well, you're going to be able to select from the drop-down menu, is the family member or the person that's applying, are they currently receiving SSI? Are they currently receiving SSDI? Or do you have a disability certification form? And this disability certification form is available on the Maryland ABLE website under resources. You'll find an entire section for forms. You can just print that form off and take it to the physician, and that person could just select the disability code and sign it. You don't need to submit it at the time of enrollment, but rather you're just going to hold on to it in case you're ever asked to produce that documentation. Okay, so it's very simple as far as the eligibility process. And a lot of people ask me, well, Kelly, what if I have a family member that has multiple disabilities? What do I do? Which one should I check? It doesn't matter as long as you're checking one of those disabilities. That way we know that you're you're eligible. Okay, next slide, please. Who can open the ABLE account? Well, it's important to know that with an ABLE account, it is always owned by the person with the disability. They are both the owner and the beneficiary of the ABLE account. So if you have a child that has a disability and you're opening the ABLE account, obviously they're going to need someone to help them open it and manage it. And in the ABLE space, we call this the authorized legal representative, or the ALR. So this is usually a parent or a guardian that's going to help open that ABLE account and manage it for them. Now, at the age of 18, if your family member is able to take over managing their own ABLE account, that's fine. They can do that. Certainly they can. But oftentimes we see that they either choose to have a parent or a guardian or somebody help them to manage the account, and that's okay. You can continue in that role. If you have an adult family member now that is going to be opening an ABLE account, if they are able to manage the account, again, they can open it on themselves and manage it, but they can also appoint someone else to help them with that role, to be that ALR, and they can appoint anyone that they like. Jeff, if you want to just pop over to the next slide, and we'll take a look at things that are a little different for, say, a family member that we have that is not able to manage their own ABLE account, and they're not able to give consent to designate someone to serve in that role as ALR. So this would be someone, that they could have a power of attorney, someone can serve who has a power of attorney over financial for that person. It could be someone that's serving as a conservator or guardian of property. It could be a spouse, a parent, a sibling, a grandparent, or someone who's serving as representative payee for that person. So oftentimes people say, well, my family member is not able to give consent and I don't have guardianship yet. So do I have to wait until I have guardianship before I can proceed with opening that account? The answer is no, if you are in one of those other roles that we just mentioned. Okay. All right. Now, I'd like to share with you a new feature that we have added, and we're really excited to introduce this. We have what we call a role-based authorized user access. And this was brought about for many reasons, but one of the very popular reasons, we may have a person with a disability whose parents are divorced, and they both agree that an ABLE account is a really helpful tool for their family member, but there's sometimes they're uncomfortable with just one parent serving as that ALR and the other person doesn't have access. So whoever opens the ABLE account can choose to give access to another person. So, let's just say I opened the ABLE account for my daughter. My husband and I are no longer together. I could give my daughter's father access to the ABLE account in many different types of forms. It could be just someone who can just view the transactions, or it could be somebody who has the authority to make transactions. So there's a lot of levels in this, so I don't want to go too far into the weeds on this. We hope to be releasing a presentation coming up this year that really focuses more on this, but just so that you know that this is a new feature and we're excited about it because it can really help families that are in those unique situations. Okay, next slide. So Jeff, let me just do a little check-in right here because I know I've covered a lot of information already about eligibility and who can help open and manage the ABLE account. Do we have any questions about that so far?
Not specifically. We do have one. I'm going to run it by you. We can hold off on it or answer it now.
Okay.
Do retirement assets such as IRAs count against SSI's $2,000 asset limit?
Thank you for that question. It's a very good question because any money, any funds in any type of regular account or savings or investment account is a countable resource for a person with a disability. So, you know, they could, if that retirement account is in the person's name who has the disability, they would count that as a resource.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good question. Keep them coming, guys. That's what I'm here for. Anything you can think of as I'm moving through, pop it in the Q&A and we'll get to that. So we'll take a look at contributions and things that we need to know about contributions. If you want to go to the next slide, we will see that with the start of the new year, we have a new contribution limit. So Jeff, you want to advance to the next slide? I can hopefully, there we go. So one of the things that I'm excited to share is that we'll go back one, is with the standard annual contribution limit has increased to $20,000. It was $19,000 last year. And we've been very fortunate because over the last several years, we've seen this standard annual contribution rise year over year. This is not a guarantee. We don't always see this happening, but I'm grateful that we do have it this year. So the standard annual contribution limit is something important that I want you to think about because with this, that would mean your ABLE account or your family member's ABLE account could receive up to $20,000 in contributions for this calendar year. And then you're limited to that amount. January 1 of the next year, that contribution limit it may increase, it may not, but you can start all over with being able to put another $20,000 into the account. That doesn't mean that your account is limited to $20,000 a year because hopefully with savings and investing, you're going to see that account balance grow, but you do have a standard annual contribution limit. And I do like to point this out because this is an area that you're thinking, so if I can only put $20,000 a year in, this may not be the tool for me to be able to leave money from my estate or my life insurance policy if I were to pass away. And you're absolutely correct because most of us are going to leave behind assets exceeding that $20,000 standard annual contribution limit. And this is where we see a need for another really great planning tool, which would be a special needs trust. Because with a special needs trust, there is no contribution limit. You can fund your 8 years trust with $1 or $10 billion. It really doesn't matter, right? So that's why we do like to point out that ABLE accounts and special needs trust are collaborative planning tools, and most families eventually wind up with both, okay? So there's the $20,000 standard annual contribution limit. For those who are opening an ABLE account, you'll note that there is a minimum contribution. Your initial contribution to open an ABLE account here in Maryland is $25. That's not a fee. That's just how you're starting to fund that account. You could fund it with more if you want, but the minimum amount is $25. From that point on, you can decide when to make contributions to your ABLE account and how often, as long as those contributions are a minimum of $5. So we've talked a little bit about the standard annual contribution limit, but I do want to point out that there is an additional way to be able to contribute money that would allow a person to exceed that standard annual contribution, and that is called able to work contributions. One of the great things about starting in 2026 is I can share with you that this able to work contribution provision has been made permanent. It was scheduled to sunset on December 31st of last year, but with the most recent legislation, the budget reconciliation that happened, otherwise known as the Big Beautiful Bill, they did make permanent this provision to continue to make this available. So with able to work, this is for someone who has an ABLE account who's also working. They can qualify as long as they're not contributing to another retirement account or their employer is not contributing to a retirement account for them. They could qualify to contribute above the $20,000 asset contribution limit. So this is a very helpful thing for someone who's working. We'll talk a little bit about that, more about that in just a minute. The other thing I want you to think about regarding ABLE account contributions is when you get close to, or when you get to the $100,000 ABLE account balance. Your account can continue to grow. You can continue to contribute if you want to, but if your family member is receiving SSI benefits, what would happen once the ABLE account reaches the $100,000 balance is Social Security would push a pause button on those monthly cash benefits. Medicaid health insurance would remain, and any waivers that the person is receiving would also remain. So if this were to happen, SSI is going to push that pause button, no longer receive the monthly cash benefit, but at any point that you are to withdraw money from your ABLE account and spend it below the $100,000 limit, Social Security would be able to automatically reactivate those monthly SSI cash benefits because they were never disenrolled from Social Security. And this is the big difference with being able to try to save money in a regular account, checking, savings, investment account, whatever, and an ABLE account. Money within an ABLE account is not counted up to $100,000. Money outside of an ABLE account beyond $2,000 is going to be counted as an asset. So this is really the big difference here. If your family member is receiving SSDI, they don't need to worry about that $100,000 balance because SSDI does not have an asset limit for them. And you can continue to contribute to the ABLE account until the account balance reaches $500,000. You could continue to have that account, and it could continue to grow because of earnings, but we would not be able to accept any additional contributions once it reaches $500,000. Okay, once that account balance were to go down, we could continue to take contributions. So lots and lots of information about contributions. Do we have any questions about that?
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, let's take a look here. We've had some questions flowing in here. Oh my, lots of questions. It's great. First, can you restate the dollar amounts of ABLE versus a regular 529?
So with a 529, they also have that $500,000 account balance that you can continue to contribute to a 529 account until it reaches that $500,000 mark, and then they couldn't accept contributions until the balance were to be decreased. So that would be the same between ABLE and 529. And I'm not sure I understand the other part of the question. So with Maryland ABLE, we do have a standard annual contribution limit of $20,000 per year.
Could you please reiterate the role of the ALR? My disabled sister is not very cooperative at all, yet she has SSI. Can I open it without her cooperation?
Well, again, the ABLE account is going to be owned by this person's sibling, and they would be the owner and the beneficiary. So they would, unless the person has power of attorney, it sounds like her sister would be able to, say that she doesn't want one. So that would be really a personal situation, because the account, it could be opened and managed by the sibling, but if she doesn't want the account, that's a really tough call, because she's going to be the owner of the account. So that sounds like something that she might want to talk with her, or maybe have her sister talk with someone about some of the benefits for that. Unless she has guardianship or something like that, then she'd be able to open the account, because we wouldn't want to do something that, the person, if they're the owner of the account, they need to know that the account is opened.
Okay. Is there a Maryland residency requirement for the disabled person to create an ABLE account?
No, actually, we are one of the 47 ABLE programs that are open for national enrollment. Not all ABLE programs are, but we are. So we do have, I think, about 3% of our ABLE account owners who live out of state.
Okay. Can a grandparent open and add to the account, have the parent of the disabled minor be in charge of the account?
So the person who's going to open the account and manage the account, this would be, let me just think this through, Jeff, for a second. So the person, so I want to make sure I understand. So the grandparents want to open the ABLE account, but they want the parent of the minor to manage the account. Is that correct? Okay,
Yes.
okay. So the person, if the grandparent, if they, discuss this amongst themselves, if the grandparent wants to open the ABLE account, they can be the person who serves as that main authorized legal representative, and then they could give access, that multiple user access feature that we added this year. They could have the parent or the parents be given that access to the account to make transactions if they want to do that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you know which states do not have ABLE accounts?
Oh, you're making me think, and which ones it is. Let's see. Okay, it's North and South Dakota, Idaho, and Wisconsin, because they're too cheesy. All right, that was a bad dad joke, but anyway, and actually Wisconsin is in the process of getting their legislation created to be able to open an ABLE account. So those are the 4 states right now.
Okay. Kind of a specific question, bit confused on the out account balance limits. My son does not receive SSI anymore, but he does have medical assistance and Medicaid. What is his balance limit?
He doesn't have a balance limit because he doesn't receive SSI, and if he did receive SSDI, there is no asset limit, so he can continue to grow his ABLE account to whatever. Once it reaches that $500,000 account balance limit, we wouldn't be able to receive any more contributions. The balance could continue to grow because of earnings. And if you spent money down from that $500,000 balance, then you could start making contributions again.
Okay. We have a couple of questions about what money can be spent on. Perhaps we hold off on those till the next section.
Yes.
And let's do just a couple more here. If a beneficiary only receives Social Security survivors benefits, Medicare, and Medicaid, but no SSI, can their ABLE account balance exceed the $100,000 limit?
Yes, because as with survivor benefits, there is not an asset limit for them. It's only with SSI.
Okay. Let's do one more. When we recertify for various programs such as HOC, SNAP, waiver, etc., should we report the ABLE account and amount when recertifying? If so, what type of an account would it be called? This has been confusing for us.
Okay, so if there's a place on the reporting form, you can list the ABLE account because it is not accountable resource for housing, SNAP. It's not accountable resource. So, I don't know that, I'm not sure what all family members do. Some people may report it, some people may not. I don't know what they're doing, but I know that if it is reported and there's any trouble with, hey, you've got this ABLE account, you've got this account, we could provide you with a letter from these organizations themselves that say, money in an ABLE account is not accountable resource regarding housing, SNAP benefits, things like that.
Okay, so we do have a few more, but let's move on for now.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Jeff, just want to touch on able to work just real quick before we go beyond that slide, because I just want to point out that I want people to think about the standard annual contribution limit and the able to work contribution as 2 different buckets, if you will. All right. So with the standard annual contribution of $20,000 a year, that can be contributed by anyone, and the account owner, family, friends, and employers, small settlements, all of that can go into that standard annual contribution. But the able to work bucket can only be filled by the account owner who's working, and they can contribute up to, for this calendar year, $15,650, okay? This is going to be limited to the additional contributions equal to the beneficiary, the account owner's gross income for that current year. So let's just say they're working part-time, they're making $5,000 a year, they could contribute all of that $5,000, but they would code that as able to work contributions. And that still allows that other bucket to receive that full $20,000 from some other source if it's available, right? Let's just say down the road, they get a full-time job, they're making $20,000 a year, they would only be able to contribute up to the $15,650. So again, this is for someone who's working, who is not contributing to a retirement plan, you know, a 401k or a 403b, something like that, or their employer is not doing it on their behalf. So a great opportunity for people who are working to be able to contribute above and beyond. And my goodness, oh, here it is. I love to share these numbers because here in Maryland, we do have over 8,500 ABLE account holders. And out of those folks, we have 855 people that are working who have an ABLE account, and together over the last 8 years have been able to save $5.8 million of their own money through an ABLE account. So I am so completely impressed by these folks. I don't know anybody of them personally, but I'm hoping that one day my daughter gets a job and can also start making able to work contributions, because I think this is amazing for a group of folks who were once told, don't work, you can't work. I'm really super proud of them. So that's pretty cool stuff. All righty. So next slide. Yes, more good news here. So one of the other things that was made permanent by the Budget Reconciliation Act was that the ABLE Financial Planning Act that made it possible for people to be able to roll money over from a 529 account into an ABLE account has been made a permanent provision for ABLE, which is wonderful because that was sunsetting December 31st of 2025. And this has been able to help so many folks. Let's just say that when your child was born, you opened a 529 college savings account, and you know, as they got older and maybe started to plan on exiting high school, maybe college was not in the pathway. That was not where they were going to go. People had this money there and they're like, what are we going to do? So if they have an ABLE account, they can roll money from the 529 college savings account into the ABLE account and then be able to expand how they can use that money. Money in a 529 is really geared towards education, right? College, trade schools, you know, private schools, things like that. But if they're not going to be able to use all those funds for that, they can roll it into the ABLE account and expand that use to anything that's going to support them in their health, independence, or quality of life. So that's a great thing to do. Do keep in mind that it is still subject to that $20,000 standard annual contribution limit, less any money you've already contributed, right? So if you've opened that 529 and you've got $30,000 in there, you could put some money in this year. You can't put the whole amount in, right? Because it's a $20,000 standard contribution limit, but then you can roll it out over the next couple years and just be able to use that money then in any way that they need it. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. With an ABLE account, you do have options of how you either want to save money or invest money for your family member. And the good news is you don't have to just pick either or, you can do a combination of both. So what we currently offer here in Maryland is a cash option, which is an FDIC insured interest-bearing option that a lot of folks are really interested in using this if they use their ABLE accounts as a very transactionary account, meaning they're putting money in every month, maybe some, you know, residual funds from Social Security that weren't spent. They move those into their ABLE account so that they can have it as a way to save it for the future. But then they're also able to access the money throughout the month for things that they need. So a lot of folks are like, hey, that cash option is a good thing for me. So some people put a portion of it in that because you can just take it out and use it whenever you need. Other folks are more interested in looking at that long-term investing piece, especially the folks that are now newly eligible for ABLE accounts, that may be people that are, you know, in their 40s and 50s. Maybe they have a disability that started later in life, and they're, you know, they want to look at ABLE as a retirement option for them, another option for saving for their retirement or planning for their future. We do have currently 4 investment choices. These are all portfolios that are managed by Vanguard specifically for Maryland ABLE. And the first one is a fixed income where it's 100% in bonds. So, you know, it's it may be something that people would be interested in as a very conservative way to invest. The second option is what we call our conservative portfolio, which is made up of 20% in stocks and 80% in bonds. We have a moderate option, which is 50% in bonds and stock, the other in stocks. So, you know, some people, if they want to step out into investment, they are thinking, well, that's, you know, that's a moderate choice. We can just work with that. Aggressive would be 84% in stocks and just 16% in bonds. So, you know, really, we try to provide different options that would meet people's goals. Some people are looking to put money into ABLE and leave it in there long term because they want to just save it for way into the future. They tend to like those investment options, leaning, you know, sometimes more towards the aggressive, because they're willing to ride out that long investment period where they're taking those ups and downs and dips in the stock market. But other people are like, yeah, I just, you know, I need to know, I want to make sure that my money's there. I'm going to put some in cash and some in one of the investments, and I'm going to be able to use it. So really, there's no right or wrong answer. It's really up to you. The good news is, every time you make a contribution to that ABLE account, every time, you get to choose where you want to direct that contribution. Do you want to direct it to the cash option because you think you're going to be taking it out in 2 months because you're planning on going on a trip? Or do you want to put it in one of the investment options because it's something you want to save for long term? So you do have options there. You can pick one of these or all of these. Totally up to you. Okay, we'll go ahead and go on to the next slide. We'll go past that one too. We can talk more about investment options if we have questions later, but we'll go ahead and advance on to the next. Let's talk about account fees. So with an ABLE account here in Maryland, there's a $35 annual maintenance fee. And this is something that is assessed quarterly at $8.75 per quarter. It is also prorated. So people who opened their ABLE accounts back in December, they didn't have to pay $35 a year because they didn't have the account January through November, right? So it's prorated for when you open the account. Any other additional fees that a person could have would be based on the investment options. So to have money invested in the cash option, you know, that's included in your annual maintenance fee. But if you do want to choose one of the other investment portfolios, there is an asset-based fee that is associated with each one of those. And in the interest of time, because the composition of all those investment portfolios is different, so it impacts a little the investment fees, I would really recommend that you just go onto the Maryland ABLE website and go into the program disclosure book. It goes into great detail about everything about ABLE, but also those the portfolio options. Okay. All right. Next slide. Who can contribute to an ABLE account? Oh boy, do I love the answer to this question. And that is anybody, account owner, him or herself, family, friends, employers, could be their, you know, earned income from their jobs, benefit back payments. Whew, this is just one of the most phenomenal uses of an ABLE account. So anyone that's ever been through the process of applying for Social Security for a family member, you know, it can take 9 months, year and a half, 2 years, 5 years. Sometimes it takes a really long time. And when that person is finally awarded the SSI benefits, they will pay, they'll issue back payments from the time the application was submitted. So we see folks sometimes that are getting really large back payments. I'm talking $5,000, $8,000, $10,000. Well, to no fault of their own, they're already over-resourced, right? They can only have $2,000 in an outside bank account, a regular checking or savings, and they're going to get a back payment of $8,000. And Social Security does give them a period of time to spend that money down. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's 9 months, but don't work for Social Security. But if I recall correctly, I think that's what it is. But why be forced to spend down money, spend down an $8,000 contribution if you didn't have to, if you could leave it in the ABLE account for when you actually needed it? So we see a lot of folks benefited from that. We've already talked about rollovers from 529 accounts. And some people say, well, you know, I don't think my child's going to go to college, but what if I put the money in ABLE and then, oh no, you know, maybe 5 years from now they do decide to go to college? Not a problem, because you can still use the money from your ABLE account to pay for education costs. So those rollovers from 529 are really helpful. Small inheritances. Again, this goes back to that need for multiple planning tools. Mom and dad, you know, you're not going to be using your ABLE account to leave behind your, you know, your estate for those large life insurance policies, things like that. You're going to want to have a multiple, you know, you're going to look into special needs trust or things like that, that you can accommodate those large balances. But certainly small balances, small inheritances. You know, great uncle Louis, he passed away. I didn't even know it, but he left my son, you know, $5,000 life insurance policy. Well, you can't put Louis' $5,000, you know, life insurance policy into a regular checking or savings, because that would over-resource him, right? So you can use that. You can do that for an ABLE account. And small settlements. God forbid, you know, somebody's in a minor car accident and they're awarded, you know, $6,000. You could put that inside of an ABLE account. So, any questions about who can contribute or any of the investment discussion that we had? I tell you, I'm working Jeff really hard this Friday. I'm sure it's been a long, our first week back to work after the holidays, and I'm making them work hard by scanning through all those questions and advancing my slide deck.
That's why they pay me the big bucks, Kelly. So what happens when my family member passes away? Okay,
so I'm going to do my best to give you a comprehensive answer to a very complex question. We're going to start with what happens if a person passes. The money in the ABLE account can be used to pay any final expenses, any outstanding expenses, funeral, burial expenses. Okay, the account will remain open for about 6 months to have a process for any claim, you know, anybody that has to pay anything against it to be open. After that, and you know, you'll have to notify the ABLE program that the person passed, but then the account can be closed and liquidated, and the funds can be given to the recipient of the account owner's estate. Okay. So if they have a will, it could be directed to whoever is the recipient of the estate. And if it doesn't, you know, it's going to go through probate. It's going to look through an order of people who would be able to receive that, which would be, you know, a spouse, a child, parent, siblings, so on and so forth. When that person, whoever that is, that receives that estate in the end, they will be able to receive the ABLE funds. However, the money coming out of that account when it's closed is called a non-qualified disability expense, because the money can only be spent on the person with a disability, but they've passed. So the money that that person is going to receive is going to be now subject to taxes on the earnings of that account. So they pass and leave behind $10,000, they would calculate the interest earned on that $10,000 account over the years, and that person would have to pay taxes on the earnings. So that's the simple answer right there, okay? Because I know somebody's going to ask me this next, so let's just jump off the board and do this. So people say, what about, you know, I've heard about clawback and that Medicaid will come back and recapture money from a person that's been receiving Medicaid services. So in the state of Maryland, Maryland Medicaid has issued a letter saying that they will not seek repayment of money from an ABLE account. They won't do that. However, the federal government reserves the right to be able to recapture money. Because remember, any services that you're receiving or your family members receiving is coming from two different funding sources. There's federal funds and there's state funds that come into that pot of money that pays for all those services. So the federal government can recapture money. They reserve the right to do that.
Okay. Do other states have a higher annual contribution limit than Maryland's 20,000?
Oh, excellent question. So again, since ABLE legislation is federal legislation, all state ABLE programs have to follow the same regulations. And our regulations are kept within the Internal Revenue Code, Section 529A. So the Internal Revenue Code says they'll set the limit, what that is. They'll say, this is what the limit is this year. The federal legislation will change that, and they will say 20,000. So all ABLE programs are following the same contribution limit. And same with able to work contributions. Eligibility is the same everywhere because it goes back again to the federal legislation. But that's a great question.
As a father of a disabled adult child, do I need to have legal guardianship to be able to make decisions on their behalf? And how do I get that?
This would be a great follow-up question for Jeff, and he could definitely connect you with someone at Elville to talk about guardianship and guardianship alternatives. That's a very personal choice depending upon the needs of your son. And some people do find that they need to have guardianship because they don't have the ability to manage those things. Other people say, I'm going to help manage through a power of attorney and help them make decisions medically and financially. So it really just kind of depends. So Jeff, I know this would be a great one for you to be able to send this person some resources on.
Sure, please reach out to me. I'm not an attorney, but I can certainly point you in the right direction because I'm around a lot every single day. So glad to be of service to you. Couple more here. Do the work earnings for the work buckets have to be directly deposited into the ABLE account?
They don't have to be directly deposited. They can be if folks want to make a direct deposit from their paycheck into ABLE. They can contribute a portion of their paycheck into the ABLE account. They can contribute the entire thing into their ABLE account. Totally personal choice, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay. With the limited $20,000 annual contribution plus any work contributions, how realistic is it to be worried about the $500,000 limit or the $100,000 limit? Am I missing something?
Well, if you think about it, if over the years, I think we started with a $13,000 contribution limit way back when we first launched, and it's gone up every year. You think about it, if you did max out your contributions, and we'll just keep it easy for the sake of, math's sake, and you did 20,000 contributed this year, 20,000 next year. I mean, how many years does it take you to get to $100,000, right? So, and then if you're factoring in able to work contributions, that right now it's 15,650. I mean, 20 plus 15, that's 35,000. If you did that every year, you'd be pretty close to that ABLE account balance of 100,000. And I think we have 16 ABLE account holders here in Maryland ABLE that have exceeded the $100,000 balance, and they're okay with it for various reasons. Some of them may be receiving SSDI and don't need to worry about it. Other people may have been receiving SSI, but then they got jobs and they decided that that was actually better for them to be able to earn the money. So there's a lot of factors why some people choose to exceed that $100,000 limit.
Okay, let's do a couple more. Can deposits be transferred in from a bank account?
Yes, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes when we talk about account management. So hold that thought because we're going to get to that. All right, so
can we do one more?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Can college loans be paid from an ABLE account?
Yes, if it's for the account owner and they're paying for education,
Okay.
it's qualified
Got
expense.
some more, but we'll move on for now.
Okay, so we'll advance to the next slide and see what's up here. How do I access the money in the ABLE account? So when a person opens an ABLE account, most people, and this is the preferred method, you're going to go to the ABLE program of your choice. So here in Maryland, we're www.marylandable.org. You click on that website, there'll be a button that you can click on that says open an account or enroll here, and you go through an enrollment process that's going to ask you questions, that identify the account holder, name, address, birthday, disability, whether they're receiving SSI or not, that whole thing. They're going to ask for information about the authorized legal representative, again, name, date, address, contact information, all that kind of good stuff. And eventually you're going to get to a part in the enrollment process where it's going to ask you to link an existing bank account of your choice to the ABLE account. And that's how you electronically transfer money into the ABLE account and out of the ABLE account when you need it. You are not limited to just one linked bank account. You can link as many bank accounts as you wish, as long as that linked bank account is in the name of the account owner or the ALR. So if I could use my personal experience here with helping my daughter to open and manage her ABLE account. She was 14 at the time, so she didn't have a checking account. She wasn't working. She's still in school. So it made most sense to me to link mom and dad's regular checking account to her ABLE account, because we were the ones that were putting money into her ABLE account, and we were taking withdrawals to pay for things like her braces and summer camps and stuff. So that's how we did it. Fast forward, 5 years later, 5-6 years later, she started receiving SSI benefits when she was an adult. So I went ahead and added that rep payee account, checking account, or rep payee bank account to her ABLE account. So now I've got 2 bank accounts linked. So that way I can electronically transfer money out of her rep payee account. Whatever she doesn't spend in the month, I transfer a portion of that over to her ABLE account. So that way we don't have to worry about her SSI rep payee account going beyond the $2,000 and losing benefits. So that's how you're going to be able to electronically transfer money in and out, is through those linked bank accounts. Okay. We also have the option for those who are maybe unbanked, or sometimes we have people in that situation where you can request, paper request, or send in a deposit form and mail it to the program manager. It doesn't happen often, but we do have that. There is an additional fee for that, but it's available. And the other option for taking money out of the ABLE account is through our prepaid card, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. So hopefully that answered the question we had, Jeff, from the last question. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we're going to be using our ABLE account. We'll advance to the next slide. People want to know, hey, what can I use the money for in my ABLE account? This is a very broad definition. If you were to be suffering insomnia and went to Section 529 of the Internal Revenue Code and looked up qualified disability expenses, what it would tell you is anything that supports, any service, any item, anything that's going to support a person in their health, their independence, or their quality of life. This is very broad. Some people love this definition and others can't stand it because they're like, well, what does that mean? So what they did is they provided us with a list of categories. It is not intended to be an all-inclusive list. It's really not. But these are some categories: health, prevention, and wellness. I'm sure that right away you're thinking, okay, well, that's like prescriptions and maybe doctor co-pays or whatnot. But think about wellness. Wellness includes so much more. This could be therapeutic horseback riding, yoga classes, a gym membership. So you really want to expand your thinking as to what does that all include. Housing, You can use it to pay rent or mortgage, and this is an area where we really see that collaborative tools of a special needs trust and an ABLE account, because with some special needs trusts, they're not able to, say, make a mortgage payment out of a special needs trust or pay rent out of a special needs trust. But a lot of folks will fund the ABLE account from the trust for enough money to make those rent payments throughout the year, because housing is one of the qualified expenses for an ABLE account. Education, we talked about being able to pay for college, right? Any type of education, but it can also be sewing classes, pottery classes. It doesn't matter what kind of education it is. Transportation, they can use it for Ubers and Lyfts and taxis and planes, trains, and if you have an adaptive vehicle that you need to purchase to be able to transport your family member, you can purchase that vehicle with ABLE funds and maintain it. Put gas in the car, new tires, oil changes, all that, because that covers their transportation. Basic living expenses is going to be things like food, clothing, utilities, assistive technology. This can be screen readers and computers, but it can also be a cell phone, the monthly cell phone expense, as well as purchasing the phone. As you can see, you know, there's just a lot of different areas. It's going to go all the way down to funeral and burial expenses. So we do have a lot of ways that you can use an ABLE account. The decision-making process for withdrawing funds and using it for the account holder should be, does this withdrawal support the beneficiary in his or her health, independence, or quality of life? Do you want to maintain documentation? This looks different for different people. I'm a seasoned woman, let's just say that. I am not somebody that came up with like computer stuff, so I'm not a scanner and an electronic spreadsheet girl. I just tell my daughter to bring her receipts. I put them in toss them in a file folder labeled ABLE account 2025. If I ever am asked to produce, you know, how that money was spent, I'm just going to hand an auditor that file folder with receipts for all the years. Other people, they're like, oh my God, that sounds like a nightmare to me, Kelly. I use the prepaid card. It keeps track of where all the expenses, where all the money was spent. I'm a scanner. I do this. However you want to do it is fine, but the best practice is to be able to support how the money was spent in the event of an audit, not by Maryland ABLE, but by the Internal Revenue Service. If your family member was ever pulled for an audit, not because they have an ABLE account, but because they got lucky and they're one of the like 2% of the country that gets pulled, the IRS is going to want to know two things. Number one, do you qualify for this tax advantage savings account? And the way you'd be able to prove that is, are they receiving SSI or SSDI? Or remember back in the day when you had the physician fill out that disability certification form, that's what you could show them. The second thing they're going to want to know is, how's the money being spent? They really just want to ensure that the money is being spent on the beneficiary. So however you want to keep that documentation that could support that the money is indeed being spent on the person with the disability. Any questions about QDEs? Because I know a lot of times people are like, but can I use it for fill in the blank? So this is your chance to pop that in the chat if you want.
Thanks, Kelly. Let's take a look. There were a couple earlier in the presentation. Let me see if I can find those.
We talked about the college
Yep.
tuition payments, so we got that one. That's definitely a qualified expense.
Can funds be used to purchase food on a regular basis?
Yes.
I'd like to know more about what ABLE money can be spent on. How should I interpret health, independence, or quality of life? When the money is transferred to a connected account, in order to use it, you have to worry if that transfer will momentarily raise the balance of the receiving account above $2,000.
Yes, if you're transferring it back to the account owner's personal checking or savings account. So that's why I've linked my account as well. So that way, if I have a large expense, say like these summer camps, they can be $1,000. So if I withdraw money from her ABLE account, I transfer it to my checking account where I could pay that $1,000 out. So you do want to keep an eye on that. Okay. Especially when it comes to rent. Let's just say that's a big one. Usually rent is more than $1,000. So you don't want to go and, you want to pay attention that you're going to be using that money within the same month that you withdrew the $1,000 to pay the rent. It has to be used and paid to that rental, leasing office or whatever within the month that you use it, or it could be considered accountable resource if it causes your account to go over $2,000.
Okay. Can you provide any specifics regarding the 529 rollover to ABLE accounts? What end do initiate the transfer? Is the rollover electronic or paper check?
You would initiate the rollover, but in order to do that, you'd first have to have an ABLE account set up, something for them to roll it into. So you would initiate it, and there's forms on our website under the resource section where you can have the paperwork to initiate the rollover. And did I get all parts of that question, Jeff? I'm having like a senior moment because I want to make sure I answered all parts of that.
We're about the same age, Kelly, so yeah.
Okay. We'll help each other along.
Are withdrawals taken against principal or any of the earnings?
For the 529 withdrawals, right?
I believe means ABLE. Yes, please correct me if I'm wrong there, Tim.
So the balance, it's whatever, it just comes off the balance, and the balance in that ABLE account is going to reflect both contributions and earnings.
Okay.
So they don't just take it, they don't split it out between I'm taking a contribution and I'm taking a withdrawal and I'm just taking it off the contributions. It'll come off the whole balance of the account.
Okay. My son gets 2 Social Security deposits. One is from his own benefit and the other is from a survivor benefit. His deceased father was also disabled. Is it possible to only have one deposit directly from Social Security?
I don't know that they would issue, since they're currently issuing 2 separate, if I understand this question correctly, the person is receiving 2 separate deposits. And so since I don't work for Social Security, I don't know if they can combine those or not. But certainly once he receives these benefits, he could set up like contributions from his SSI and survivor benefit to go into ABLE, but I don't know that Social Security combines them.
Okay. I think you answered part of this already. When my daughter passes away, can she have beneficiaries for her Maryland ABLE account, or does the government get her funds? What about funeral expenses? Can they be made from the ABLE account?
Yes, funeral and burial expenses, any other outstanding expenses that she had could be paid from the account. And we're currently with a Maryland ABLE account, you can designate a successor beneficiary who's ABLE eligible. So let's just say your daughter had a sibling or another family member that had a disability who has an ABLE account. There could be a direct beneficiary set up to where funds from her ABLE account could transfer into theirs. But let's just say she does not have an ABLE eligible person that she's leaving her money to. It can still, we don't have a way for you to designate at this point. I'm not saying this won't happen in the future. It's something that we're looking into, but currently you cannot designate a successor beneficiary on the account unless they're ABLE eligible. And when the money doesn't go to, when you say goes back to the government, I'm going to go back to that example where the money in the ABLE account, if they, is not being recaptured by Medicaid, will go to the person who receives her estate. In Maryland, remember, Maryland Medicaid says if they pass and have $10,000 in their ABLE account, we're not going to come back in and say, hey, pay us back for the Medicaid service, whatever services we've provided you. But the federal government reserves the right to do that. And this is usually for someone age 55 and older who has been receiving long-term care. And this is the same for all of us, Jeff. Like if you and I get older and at some point we need to go into long-term care, we'd have to pay for that nursing home ourselves. And if we wanted someone to pay for that, like, you know, a government program to pay for that, they would make sure that we divest ourselves of all of our assets, paying our own nursing home care. We're paying for it ourselves until we deplete our funds, right? And then we could apply for someone to come in and pay for our nursing care, right? Does that make sense? So it's sort of the reverse with a person with a disability. They're getting all of these services through Medicaid all along, and then if they pass away, the federal government could come back and say, hey, you know, over the last 30 years we have provided $3.4 million in services between your housing and your nursing care and your this and your that, blah blah blah, and they could come back and recoup money. That's called Medicaid clawback. But Maryland state Medicaid said they're not doing that. And again, two separate funding sources, right, guys? Some is federal funds, some is state funds going out into those waivers that our family members receive.
Okay, let's do a couple more if that's all right. So Kelly, I know I'll also want to mention to everybody that Kelly is not a financial advisor, a lawyer, doesn't work for SSI, doesn't work for Medicaid.
Yes.
So, you know, some of these questions will probably be pointed in the direction of those authorities.
Yes, definitely. Thank you,
yes,
Jeff. Thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Kelly is many things, but not the ones I just mentioned. So let's do another one here. My daughter does not file taxes, so must she now file even though the funds are not taxable?
That's a personal choice. Some people do file because they just want their family member in, you know, in that system in case there's things like when we were receiving economic stimulus payment checks, you know, back during COVID 2020. If you had never, you know, been in that process, then they didn't receive those stimulus payments. So some people say, I just want to have them in the system so that if that comes about in the future. But if it's not taxable income, you're not obligated to file. You know, as far as Maryland Able is concerned, we're not saying, hey, file taxes because your family member's receiving tax-free earnings. It's a personal choice.
Okay. To answer several questions here, yes, you'll receive the recording today as well as the slides again, along with Kelly's contact information, which she graciously provides. Let's do one more, Kelly, and then we'll move towards the end here. Can you move special needs trust funds to an ABLE account?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's keep going, Kelly.
All right, now one of my favorite parts is talking about all the features, because we've had some additional features added that I'm excited to share. So we'll go ahead and pop on to the next slide. One of my favorites to talk about is the ABLE prepaid card. This doesn't automatically come with your ABLE account. You can order it at any time. Like if you opened your ABLE account last week and you didn't know about the prepaid card and you want it, you log into your ABLE account, click on the big tab that says prepaid card, and you can have one sent to you. It's important to note that it is an additional fee of $1.25 per month, whether you use it 100 times or you don't use it at all. It's $1.25 for that. Okay. What it is though is a really convenient way to access those funds in your ABLE account, rather than logging into your ABLE account, electronically transferring money back to your linked bank account. You can use the prepaid card to pay for, you know, prescriptions and food and going out to dinner and summer camp and braces, whatever you're paying for. You can do it with your ABLE prepaid card, because you're going to be loading funds onto this prepaid card from your ABLE account, and the funds are available on the card. They're still considered as part of your ABLE account. So it's not like Social Security is like, hey, wait a minute, you know, you have this money sitting in this account because you're going to be making a large payment for braces or whatever. No, it's still considered part of your ABLE account. And you decide how much you want to load onto the ABLE prepaid card. It is not, it is a Visa in that it's got the Visa logo, but it functions more like a card that you could buy like an American Express or MasterCard at the gift counter, where you would load funds onto a gift card and send it to somebody. It works more like that, to where it only has the amount of funds on it that you placed on it. So it's not a line of credit. People can't get themselves into trouble with it as far as exceeding their amount allotted, because when the money's gone that you transferred on there, then the card is declined. But it's really nice because you can have a card for yourself, one for your family member, or just one. It just totally depends. It's $1.25 per card. So this has been a really valuable learning tool for my daughter, because nobody is born learning how to budget, none of us. And I got her the card when she was about 16 because I wanted to start teaching her about, spending and how much money she had available to her. So she's able to take this with her on her community-based instruction trips, when she goes out with her community group and they go out for lunch, she can go to Taco Bell, pay for her own meal. If they go bowling, she pays for her bowling with her prepaid card. I don't have to worry about giving her cash. It just comes off the account. And it's been a really helpful tool for her to learn how to be more independent and self-confident with making purchases. She's very proud of herself to be able to pay for things on her own, but it also gives us an opportunity to show her how much money she has at the beginning of the month on this card. And she's beginning to learn that there's not an endless supply. This is the amount of money that she has every month, and she has to make choices. So that's kind of part of being an adult, right? Deciding what we really need and what we want, right? So it helps with the financial literacy aspect, and it makes it super easy to track where your spending is, because you can log into the prepaid card, and it'll show you where all the money, what vendors it was spent at. So it sort of categorizes, was it health, was it entertainment, whatever. So that's a really nice way to keep track of that. Just something to think about. All right, next slide. We'll talk about our mobile app. Love the mobile app because you can manage your Maryland ABLE account off of the mobile app, and we also now have a mobile app for the prepaid card. So this is an example of the TrueLink. That's the organization that provides the ABLE prepaid card for us. They've created a mobile app so you can manage it directly there. You'll see all these different customized spending permissions. You can make restrictions. If there's a certain vendor that is maybe problematic for your family member, maybe they're a big gamer and they just cannot go to the game store without wanting to spend all of their money there, you can limit the amount of money that's spent there. These are all the different little toggle switches that you can create to help them as they're learning about spending and savings. So you can just see some of those features that we have all available from your mobile device, which is awesome. All right, next slide. We have an automatic savings option, which is, I think, really cool, because as we're teaching folks about savings, and it doesn't have to start out with a massive savings goal every month. It can start with something really little. And here with our savings booster, it can be as little as $1 a month. We have something that we call a weather booster, and that means anytime there's a 50% or more chance of precipitation in your area code, it's going to pull whatever amount you've designated. And I started with $1 just because I was trying to teach my daughter about making, contributions to her savings. And I linked it to my checking account. So every time it was raining or snowing or any kind of precipitation, it automatically pulled $1 from my linked checking account into her ABLE account. And we're actually going to be sitting down this weekend and taking a look at, over 2025, how much she got into her ABLE account from just those those automatic savings. And you can make it for whatever you want, but it's kind of a nice way to grow the account. All right, next slide. Our gifting page, cannot say enough about the gifting page. I love it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to share with you, out of our, over 8,500 account holders, we have 830 people who actively use their gifting page, and over the last 8 years have received over $7.7 million in gifts, because it's just so easy for people to be able to support the savings goals or any specific needs of an account holder using that gifting page. It's basically a link to their gifting site on their ABLE account. They don't have somebody receiving this gifting page link doesn't have access to their ABLE account, but rather it's like a portal. They can send money directly to their ABLE account. They receive it by a text message, an email, or messenger. They can receive it that way. Click on a link. So, if I wanted to send, something was going on, a big goal for my daughter. Maybe she was a big trip she was trying to going on, and she's, turning 21 or something. I could send Jeff a link and say, hey, Jeff, Lily's, planning this big trip for her 21st birthday. Here's a link to her gifting page if you want to make a gift. He would click on the button, when he gets the link, put the amount in he wants to send and where he's sending it from, and it goes directly into her ABLE account. Doesn't pass through any outside accounts that could get her over-resourced. And then Jeff would be able to use that gift as an income subtraction on his Maryland state taxes. So that's why we see this being a really, really popular feature. Sometimes it's used for really fun, great celebrations. Other times it's used for things that are not fun at all, like, the adaptive van that they had is broken and it has to be replaced. And anybody want to contribute towards getting a new adaptive vehicle, or maybe it's extensive medical bills or things like that. People can make contributions. Okay, next slide. Direct deposit. For those who are interested in having their SSA funds, whether it be SSI or SSDI, survivor benefits, whatever, you can have them directly deposited to the ABLE account. But this would be in a situation where the person that is serving as rep payee is also serving as the person who's the ALR on the account. Okay, but that is an option. There's also the ability to do direct payroll contributions for both the ALR and the beneficiary, and all those forms are available on the Maryland ABLE website if you're interested in making that happen. Next slide. Mobile apps. We talked about the Vestwell app and the TrueLink app, so you can manage your ABLE account and your TrueLink card on the go. This is the mobile app. It's going to be coming from Vestwell. Vestwell is the program manager who handles all the back-end banking portion of our ABLE accounts for Maryland. They create our website. They've established this app. So you'll download that Vestwell app and you'll be able to manage your ABLE account directly from your phone, make contributions, take withdrawals, everything right there on the go. All right, next slide. Let's go back and revisit this Maryland ABLE tax incentive, remembering that anyone at all that lives in Maryland who makes a contribution to a Maryland ABLE account can use that as an income subtraction on their Maryland state taxes up to $2,500 per person. So if you're someone who's married and filing joint returns, you can use up to $5,000 of your contributions as an income subtraction. So think about families such as myself that are planning and preparing for our daughter's future. We put money into the ABLE program for her future, but we also put money into her ABLE program, her ABLE account to pay for things that she needs, things that we were paying for anyway, those orthodontist bills, right? So we do that, we put the money into the ABLE account, and then we're able to use that as an income subtraction on our Maryland state taxes. So it's a win-win. If grandma lives in Florida and she wants to contribute to the ABLE account, that's fine. That tax incentive is not going to apply to her though, because she doesn't pay Maryland state taxes. Okay, so this is just a summary slide that I want to just call to your attention because we're kind of coming to the end of our time together, and I want to make sure we leave some space for any other questions you have. So you might want to take a little glance, some of the main numbers we talked about throughout the presentation, give you a final chance to jog your memory. And while you're doing that, Jeff can kind of look and see if we have any additional comments. But Jeff, maybe hop over to the next slide, because I do want to provide to everyone some additional resources that you will note when you receive the slide deck. So Able Today is a wonderful website. Able Today is the national marketing arm for all ABLE programs nationwide, and it has a lot of helpful resources on there if you want to turn to that. There's recorded webinars and podcasts and things like that. Lots of great resources. Social Security Administration's Procedures Operations Manual, the POMS. If you want to know how Social Security is supposed to treat and regard ABLE accounts, look it up in their Procedures and Operations Manual. If you ever have any trouble with somebody from Social Security saying, I don't know what you're talking about, an ABLE account, you may provide them with the direct resource to their own POMs to point out that ABLE is a way for them to be able to save beyond 2000. Let's see what else is here. So if you're looking at, oh, I don't know if my son or daughter or family member has a qualifying disability, we have a list of all of the qualifying disabilities as reported by Social Security. And here we've got something from the housing office. We've got things about SNAP. So you'll see that ABLE funds, money inside, is not going to be counted against them. Next slide. We have some contact information for you. We've got our website. We recommend that if you're interested in opening a Maryland account, you want to type in our whole address, www.marylandable.org, to make sure you're getting to the Maryland ABLE website. A lot of people Google Maryland ABLE and something pops up called ABLE Now in Maryland, and they open that account and they find out that they're with the ABLE Now program, which is Virginia's program, which is fine. If you want to be with Virginia, that's awesome. But if you were hoping to take advantage of the Maryland ABLE features like our tax incentives, you want to make sure you're with Maryland ABLE, okay? We have a wonderful customer support team that's available to you Monday through Friday from 9 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. If you have any questions, reach out to them first. Consider following us on social media, as we try to keep our page very active of where we're going to be in the community and promote webinars like the ones we've done here with Elville. Okay, and last slide, I think that might be it. And then we're going to take some more questions. Yes, just thank you so much for starting out your new year with me on my first presentation for 2026.
Kelly, thank you so much. We really believe in Maryland ABLE here at Elville and Associates. And what I love about presenting with you and seeing you at conferences like Brandery, which we're going to for probably a 10th year in a row in April, is just the insight and your passion that shines through. Every time I'm on a presentation or at a conference with you, it's just wonderful to see. And you're a great ambassador for the program. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that.
I always welcome you back, and hopefully we'll do this again like we typically do in the fall. So
yeah,
let's look at a couple of questions here. It seems like we're able to pay for most everything with the ABLE accounts. Is there anything specifically that we are not able to use the account for?
Hey, that's a great one. So there's two things I've heard that the IRS has said no to, and that is gambling, using their ABLE funds for gambling, and for purchasing gifts for other people. Some people have a problem with this. They're like, I don't understand why I can't buy my mom or my dad a Mother's Day, Father's Day present or whatever. But in our regulations, it states that the ABLE funds are intended to be used only for the benefit of the person with the disability. Okay. So they'd have to use other funds for purchasing gifts for family and friends.
All right. Can a special needs trust send money to an ABLE account? I think we answered something.
Yes. Mm-hmm. How
many years should you save the receipts?
Again, since I'm not a tax advisor, I would check with them, but I'm hearing, I save mine for 7 because that's what I was told many, many years ago. Then I heard it went down to 5. Then I've heard some people say it's 3. So I would just check with whoever does your tax prep, ask them.
How about buying a car with some for money from the ABLE, but the car will be in my name, but used to drive her to work and medical appointments?
So that is something you'd have to be able to justify to the IRS if you were audited for that, because they're going to want to, they would say, hey, you know, how much of this car's time or your time in this car is spent solely for her purpose. So you may want to, you know, talk to a tax person about that, because that's why we know for sure if the account owner owns the car and uses it for their own transportation, 100% they can buy with an ABLE account and maintain it. A adaptive vehicle obviously is driven for the purpose of the person with a disability, but you may have some challenges if you were, you know, again, I'm not a tax person, I don't work for the IRS, but they would want to make sure that this just isn't your vehicle or your family's vehicle, because of course you're driving them around. So you may want to check into that.
Okay, yeah, we're coming up against the end here. I've got some more here. Let's kind of try to shotgun through here. So following up on rent payments, so your account can go over $2,000 within a month as long as it's spent down by the end of the month.
So I believe, and again, I don't work for Social Security, but I believe that it's the end of the month where Social Security looks at the balance in your accounts. So you want to make sure that the money is spent within that month. If you're taking out a rent money to pay the rent, make sure that it is paid before the end of the month.
Can funds from the sale of her house, which were placed in a special needs trust, be moved to an ABLE account?
You can fund an ABLE account from a special needs trust. I don't think you would want to check with your attorney about that. I don't know if it's because it's the sale of real estate that impacts that at all, going into her special needs trust, but we don't designate where the special needs trust funds come when it comes to ABLE. We just know that it is accessible into ABLE, but you want to check with your attorney that's facilitating your trust about that.
Is the ABLE prepaid card automatically declined for ineligible expenses?
No, there's no way that it's going to decline it for an ineligible expense. So if they are going to the casino and using that card and, you know, spending their money at the casino, which is not a qualified disability expense, you could personally put a block on that, you know, no casinos if you want, something like that.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that mobile app. I think that's the first time you mentioned
cool.
that in your presentations. That's great. Are there any charges for the mobile apps?
No charges for the mobile apps.
How long does it take to get an ABLE account set up after you apply online?
So it takes 15 minutes to go through the enrollment process, and then you know, it'll usually take a day or two to process that initial transaction, because you know you're gonna link your bank accounts, and it doesn't instantaneously deposit that money. You know, it's the back end banking portion has to just validate everybody's identity. So it's you know, within a couple of days. But you can have the account actually established, right, online in about 15 minutes.
Okay. Let's do one more here. Sorry if this is repetitive, but is the ABLE account part of the individual special needs trust, and that would be the beneficiary? Who would inherit it?
So ABLE account is different from a special needs trust. We oftentimes see families start with one and add the other. Sometimes they start with an ABLE account because you can get it done in about 15 minutes and it costs $35 a year. When they're working on establishing a special needs trust, you're going to spend and invest time with an attorney that's going to help you develop that trust. And of course, there's going to be an investment of money for that as well. So we see them sometimes start with one and add the other later. And they are two totally different things, but can be used in collaboration in planning for things. So like with the ABLE account, one of the big advantages is a person can get that prepaid card and have access to their own ABLE funds. With a special needs trust, there's going to be a trustee that manages that. So the person that has a special needs trust doesn't directly access their own funds. It's managed by a trustee. So there's that independence factor. That's why some people like to fund the ABLE account with a special needs trust sometimes, so that they can have a prepaid card and a person can make purchases on their own and things like that.
So a lot of our attorneys at the firm, we do I know they do typically when working with a family regarding a special needs or supplemental needs trust, they will refer them to Maryland Able and Kelly to answer further questions to see if Able will be the right fit for them to complement the planning that they're doing with our law firm. So something to keep in mind. Last question for now, Kelly. Can the funds in the Able account be spent on hobbies for the individual?
Well, let's think about it. Does that hobby, does it support them in their health, their independence, or their quality of life? Jeff, I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm going to dare say yes.
Quality of life, right? We have hobbies that enhance our quality of life. So
you didn't ask me the question that you always ask me, Kelly.
All right. How about, can I go on a vacation and use my Able account to pay for it?
I'm going to say yes.
Supports health, quality of life, right? Yeah, the difference is my daughter can use her Able account to pay for her vacation to Disney or whatever, or wherever she's going, pay for her own airfare, her park tickets, her meals. She just cannot use her Able account to pay for our entire family to join her, right? So great, good job.
Great. Well, thanks everybody. Lots of great questions and thoughts. Kelly, thanks for all you do. Looking forward to the next one already. And if I don't see you before then, I'll see you at the Brain Injury Association conference in a couple of months.
Absolutely, looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
As for our attendees here, I'll send out the slides, the recording within the next hour or two. We have lots of great presentations coming up through January and into February, a couple of new ones offered by Steve Elville and some other guest presenters, including Max Reamer from the Quantum Group, I should say. He's an advisor with the Quantum Group about life and long-term care insurance in today's marketplace. That, along with Maryland Able, was probably our most popular presentation last year. So we're starting off strong this year. So I'll send all the information to you as well. So I appreciate you being here. Hope you have a great weekend, and thanks for your interest in Maryland Able and Elville Associates. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.